Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a close look at a specific corner of the legal world, collections law.
That's right. And we've got some, really focused source material for this deep dive. It's excerpts laying out the collections law services from attorneys Jonathan Haskell and Matthew Dyer. And they specifically practice in Southern Maryland. That's Anne Arundel, Calvert, Charles, St. Mary's, and Prince George's counties.
Right. So our mission today, to really dive into this area of law, looking at it from their perspective as presented in the sources, we want to pull out the key insights, give you a clearer picture of what collections law actually involves, especially, if you find yourself dealing with an unpaid debt on either side of it.
Exactly. The practical value here is, well, getting that foundational understanding, whether you're trying to recover money someone owes you or maybe you're the one facing collections, just knowing the landscape is crucial.
Okay, so let's set the scene. The sources really start with the basic problem. In the real world, financial promises aren't always kept. It's just a reality, isn't it? And unpaid debts, they're not just numbers on a page. They can seriously impact people, businesses too. They tie up money, they can stop growth completely, drain resources.
And that's exactly where the need for, well, skilled legal help in collections comes in. The source material positions Haskell and Dyer as kind of a resource for people trying to get back what's owed to them, turn those debts into assets again.
Yeah, and the material points out a few things about their approach that are worth digging into. First off, specialized knowledge. That seems key. Collections isn't simple. You're dealing with a whole web of rules. Federal laws like the FDCPA, Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, and then Maryland's own specific state regulations. Knowing those details is vital for doing it right.
That makes sense. Specialized knowledge, especially with state variations. It's not just about asking for money. There are strict rules. What else did the material highlight about how they work? Well, they talk about a tailored strategy. The sources mentioned they don't just, apply the same method every time. Each case gets looked at individually. The goal is to craft a strategy that's, and I quote, both aggressive and fair.
Aggressive and fair. Okay, that's an interesting combination. How do the sources suggest they manage that balance?
A big part seems to be their focus on ethical practices. It's mentioned explicitly. Pursuing debts with dignity, sticking to high ethical standards. And this is framed not just as, the right thing to do morally, but also as crucial for protecting the client's own reputation during the process.
That's a really important point, I think. You want your money back, but you also need to act correctly, especially in a specific region like Southern Maryland. Did the sources mention the range of services? Comprehensive support.
They did, yes. They describe covering kind of the whole process, starting maybe with drafting demand letters, then moving into negotiation if possible, but also being ready for litigation, going to court if that's what it takes to resolve things.
And communication, keeping the client in the loop.
Transparent reporting. That's mentioned as something they believe in, keeping clients updated on how the case is going.
Okay, so if we put those points together, specialized knowledge, tailoring the strategy, the ethical focus, full range of support, and transparency. The sources seem to portray an approach really designed to, well, champion those financial interests and actually recover the outstanding money.
Right. It's about using legal tools effectively, within the rules, to move from owed to recovered.
Now, to really get a handle on collections law, it helps to understand just how many different ways money can end up being owed. The sources give a pretty broad list, actually. It shows how common this issue is.
It really is diverse. You've got the obvious business stuff, like unpaid invoices for work done or goods sold. Then financial agreements like loan defaults. Could be from a bank, could be a private loan.
And they mentioned just failing to meet the money terms in a contract that falls under breach of contract. Oh, and a really common one for landlords. Rental arrears, tenants not paying rent.
Yeah, but it covers personal debts, too. Things like unpaid medical bills, or the big one, credit card debts that people can't keep up with.
It even gets into situations after a court case, like unsettled judgments. The court said pay, but it hasn't happened. And just basic things, like overdue utility bills for water or electricity.
The sources also list some really tough personal ones, like failure to pay court-ordered alimony or child support, and of course, owing the government unpaid taxes, local, state, federal.
Even more immediate financial problems show up, like bounce checks, or those longer-term struggles, like unpaid student loans once the grace period ends.
And even just falling off track with agreed broken payment plans. Looking at that whole list, I mean, the big takeaway is that debt problems aren't just one thing. They cut across almost every type of financial interaction, which really highlights why you might need legal help or collection services.
Absolutely. It really paints a picture of the scope. Now, let's shift gears a bit to the legal nuts and bolts. The sources touch on some key questions people often have, almost like a mini FAQ section.
Right? Like a really basic one. What actually makes a debt valid? Something you can legally pursue.
And the sources boil it down pretty simply. It's a legally enforceable obligation, something you were supposed to pay, it's past due, and there's a legal basis for it, like those examples we just ran through. Invoices, contracts, loans.
Exactly. Legal enforceability is the key. Another critical legal point they cover is timing. How long do you actually have to collect a debt legally? And this introduces that important legal concept, the statute of limitations.
Yeah, and the sources make it clear this isn't one single time frame for everything. It varies a lot depending on state law. So Maryland law in this context, and even what kind of debt it is. Different debts, different deadlines.
Right, and they add an interesting detail. Even if the statute of limitations runs out, meaning you can't say sue anymore, the debt itself might not technically disappear. Someone could still choose to pay it back voluntarily later on.
That's a subtle but important distinction. Okay, maybe the most crucial question, especially if you're the one owing money. What are the rules? What are the legal limits on collecting a debt?
This is where the sources really emphasize that there are strict laws designed specifically to protect debtors from, well, bad practices.
They point out things that are definitely not allowed. Harassment, making threats, using lies or deceit.
Yeah, totally prohibited. And they stress that any collection effort has got to be within the confines of the law. It has to respect the debtor's rights and avoid anything unfair. They specifically call out the importance of federal law, that Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, the FDCPA, plus knowing Maryland's own specific state rules.
That FDCPA is really the bedrock for a lot of this, isn't it? Setting those national standards for how collectors need to behave. And bringing this back to the beginning, the sources do make a point of saying this particular firm, Haskell Dyer, operates in those specific southern Maryland counties: Anne Arundel, Calvert, Charles, St. Mary's, and Prince George's.
Yes, and that just reinforces that earlier point about specialized knowledge, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's not enough to know the federal law. You have to understand the state rules and maybe even local court procedures in those exact counties to be effective. Local context matters.
And for anyone listening who might be in that area and dealing with these kinds of debt issues, the sources mention the firm offers a free consultation.
They do mention that, yeah. And while we focus just on collections law today, because that's what these excerpts highlighted, the material does list other areas they handle, things like criminal defense, civil litigation, estate planning, family law, personal injury. It shows a wider practice.
Right, a broader scope, but collections is definitely a key focus in the material we looked at. And just for completeness, if someone wanted to follow up based on the info in the sources, the contact details provided were the address, 14825 Pratt Street, P.O. Box 1299, Upper Marlboro, Maryland, 20772, and the phone number, 301-627-5844.
Those are the details given in the source material we reviewed for this deep dive.
Okay, so let's step back and summarize the main takeaways from diving into these sources. First, unpaid debts are, well, a common challenge across many parts of life and business. Legal expertise is out there to help manage this.
Second, understanding the sheer variety of situations that lead to debt invoices, loans, rent, judgments, etc. is pretty important context.
And third, there are really fundamental legal rules governing the whole process. Things like what makes a debt valid, strict time limits, the statute of limitations, which varies, and very important ethical boundaries set by laws like the FDCPA. These rules protect debtors while still allowing for collection efforts.
Yeah, I think this gives you, based on these specific sources anyway, a solid picture of the challenges in collections, but also the legal framework and the kind of support that's available to navigate it.
So, thinking about everything we've discussed, the wide range of debts, the legal need to be both effective and ethical, the time limits, it does make you wonder, doesn't it? How does this legal system try to strike that balance? Helping creditors recover what they're legitimately owed, while also protecting individuals who might be in real financial difficulty. What part of that balancing act sticks out most to you when you think about it?
That's a really core tension in collections law, isn't it? A fascinating dynamic.
Indeed. Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive today.